in my view, is just another application of the principle of innocent until proven guilty, right? And this is itself an application of the burden of proof principle. It is the case that a person is innocent until you have shown that they are guilty. That is where the burden of proof lies. This is a fundamental law of epistemology that cannot be broken. Because fundamentally, let's imagine that I say there is actually a leprechaun sitting here on my desk at Galazar. Prove me wrong. Of course, Galazar wouldn't actually be. He might be able to like break into my house with a camera, take the camera at my desk, and go see. There's no leprechaun. But I go, aha. It's an invisible leprechaun, idiot. Like, what are you talking about? Of course, leprechauns can go invisible. Galazar actually has no means. If I can just keep playing this game forever, Galazar has no possible means of pointing to the non-existence of something. What do we know from Parmenides? That which is. That which isn't. This goes right back to ancient Greece. That which isn't. What does that mean? It means you can't show a positive example of a non-existent thing. You can't positively demonstrate the non-existence of something. That is why we have the burden of proof principle, and that is why it's properly applied in the case of law to innocent until proven guilty. It's claiming that somebody has committed the crime. That is the positive claim that must be shown.
Excellent. Well, there is your super chat. We're moving on to our next caller. This is Donkey Dung. Donkey Dung, you're on the line. You've got a really interesting question for us. I'm going to have to put it right to Zulu. Sorry, Zulu, I'm forcing you to monopolize the conversation here. Donkey Dung, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Perfect. All right. I've read your question, but I think I'd like it best if you pose it again now, and I'll let Zulu respond to you directly.
So my question goes down to the idea of how exactly do you preserve nature in an ancap society? I've had Terminal Odyssey in the ancap Discord explain to me about how there'd be no monopolization on air pollution, but in terms of natural landscapes, it seems as though the main focus is primarily upon human infrastructure and building things like concrete jungles and whatnot, rather than having the nature that helps sustain us. So things like wild natural national parks and whatnot, they seem to be kind of at odds with ancap philosophy in at least as far as I'm aware. So if I could have some understanding on how things like that would work in an ancap society, that would be, yeah.
So I understand why Galazar would put this to me first, because I wrote an article, later turned it into a video, called the Anti-Environment Manifesto, because I am indeed, I am a man who hates nature. I think it is good when nature is destroyed. It should be destroyed and made into something that better suits humans. Now, what do I mean by this? Do I mean that you're allowed to go and pump pollution out into everybody's lungs? Definitely not. That's a property crime. And in fact, a property crime that was dealt with by the courts before the government got involved. And we now have things like the EPA, where you're allowed to pollute to a certain degree with your pollution license. So what do I mean when I say I want to destroy nature? Well, what is the environment? What is nature? It's things like rocks, trees, all these things. What is non-natural? Well, it would be bricks. It would be a wooden table. So the fundamental distinction is that the natural has not been touched by humans. It has not been implemented into any productive process to achieve human wants. Whereas the non-natural has had that happen. So almost just tautologically, the less nature you have, that means more things are being used to satisfy human wants. And now these can be all sorts of things. They can be a nice hiking trail. You don't get hiking trails in nature. You get Shackleton crawling his way across Antarctica to try and plant his flag at the South Pole, and everybody along the way dying terribly. You get the gap in South America. I can't remember its name. You try and hike through that, you're going to die unless you're like an actual explorer, right? People don't like nature. I want to be perhaps on a nice grassy vista with maintained trees, so it's not going to have a forest fire in my face, and without a bear coming around the corner to claw me to death. I want a managed environment, and that is specifically non-natural. I want it to be managed by humans to make it as comfortable for human habitation as possible.
May I
Super.
say something?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I also think Zulu made an awesome point a while back talking about this as well, where private ownership actually solves a lot of this, because it creates the incentive to actually preserve nature in a sustainable way that people can actually enjoy, because the person who owns whatever park or reserve or whatever would be able to profit off of people touring it, or just enjoying the land. And I believe that was his argument, more or less. I could be mistaken.
Yeah,
Sure.
like in essence, if you have humans in there making it productive, then it still could be nice and green and everything, but it's going to be maintained at a much more appropriate human level, like, which you don't really get that in very many places. And the places you do get it, people are like, absolutely do not go there. It's terrible.
I want to contribute something on this topic from the Austrian perspective, but we've got Anarcho Econ here with us, so I think I should give him the floor first to share his thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really said it better than Zulu and Floppa, but I'll just share a quick anecdote to kind of concretize this. I was going hiking up in New England a little bit earlier, and I was going through this hiking trail, and I hadn't looked at the description, but apparently they hadn't tended to the trail for a while, and so the farther I got up this trail, it was horrible. It really was one of the most miserable experiences of my life, and I love hiking, but there's all these mud piles on the trail and all these fallen trees. It's like, so you can certainly have these beautiful natural environments, but we want them to be maintained by people, right? Please go try and go out into nature on these like unmaintained trails or without a trail at all, and you'll see it's not very fun. That's all I really have to add.
Perfect. Well, one thing I'd like to say. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say that it also solves how much of this environment that humans essentially determined would be necessary, because the market would like right now we have the government appropriating the land, and there's no way to tell how much it is actually the how do I say it, like the most marketly efficient amount that would be necessary. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling on my words a little, but I hope you understand.
Yeah,
Well,
value productive would be the normal term. Like, what is
yes
attaining human ends?
I think that the for me, the main concern here, I think that we really need to address a problem that is deeply embedded in the caller's concern here. So there seemed to be a concern that there's an overproduction of industrial buildings and the things that are around those. There's an overproduction of smog and all these kinds of things. We need to ask ourselves very, very carefully and with great deliberation, how do we determine the optimum amount of something to produce, whether it's bricks, whether it's buildings, whether it's cars that need buildings that are made out of bricks? How do we determine the best way to do this? Now, we're going to put forward that the price system is the only way that you could even attempt a solution of this. And something I think that need to be considered directly from the Austrian school, or just economics proper, is marginal utility. So when you have a good of some kind, it goes to the highest use, the most important use to you, to which you can put it. And each additional unit of that thing is going to go to the next highest use. So if you have bottles of water, the most important thing you can do with it might be to drink it. If you get a second bottle of water, the most important thing might be to give it to your dog to drink. The third one might be to wash your armpits. The fourth one might be to water a houseplant. Right, and so on. And each one of these things, demonstrated by what the human is doing with them, are successively less important. Now, there's a sort of inverse effect. So if we consider two goods, the more of one thing you get, the less valuable the next unit's going to be to you. So if I've already got 100 bottles of water, the next use for it, I might have no use for it other than to empty it out and try to do that thing where you try to flip it and make it land, or you got a little bit of water left on it, right? That might be the best thing I can think of to do with it. Obviously, that is far less important than drinking it or feeding my dog or whatever. If you're trading water bottles for, let's say, gold, then each successive unit of water that you obtain is less important, and you have less gold. So the marginal unit, the next gold that you give up, is more important, because what you're giving up is becoming more and more important. So if I have 4 bottles of water and I lose one, I can no longer water the houseplant. So the next one I lose is going to be even more important because now I can't wash my armpits. So this is a really important part of economics. What relevance does this have to nature? Well, as human beings are expanding, there's some optimum amount that's intrinsic to how they're spending their money of the nature that's good for them. Okay, some neighborhoods are absolutely loaded with trees. There's parks everywhere. Some are industrial. But how do we know the right way to do this? Well, it's intrinsic to economics that as we are building more, the more industrial stuff that we're building, the less nature we have, and you're experiencing this sort of marginal utility trade-off that's happening. So the next parking lot is a lot less useful to us than the next tree that we have to cut down to make it. Economics on a free market is such a beautiful system because instead of being the whims of some dictator, which can be a democratically elected dictator or a more traditional one, they have no constraints on the devastation that they can and will and are fully incentivized to inflict. I mean, there's so many books out there, and I know it's a cheap shot to just refer to books, but there's so many books out there about how the Soviet Union, just to represent a standard dictatorial type of government, has just obliterated the environment. But more importantly, the intrinsic facts of how humans organize themselves, it necessitates that we're on our way to finding the right amount of nature and the right amount of industry. I don't think that there is any answer that can be given outside of the free market to even try to figure out what that right answer, what that right quantity could possibly be. I said I wasn't going to answer any more questions, and here I am. What do you think about that, our caller Donkey?
I think you explained it really well. The only thing that I could really comment on is something that you brought up, Galazar, is in terms of as humans expand and grow more numerous, obviously we'll go out more and homestead into these into these places of nature and whatnot, and things like houses will become more and more needed. And I suppose it kind of goes back to that one Lorax quote, where as we expand in numbers, how exactly will things like food and oxygen be preserved in the ancap system? I know there's probably an answer that I could probably think of off the top of my head, but I'm just curious and want to go a bit further down this rabbit hole. If that's fine.
Just to make sure you get a good answer, is the question something like, am I accurately representing your question as something like, how do we not accidentally have more babies than we can feed?
All right, you basically summarized it quite well. I think, yeah, that's, now that I'm looking at my question, that seems a bit stupid, but
well, that's not you said it, not me.
Yeah, no worries. Off the top of my head, there's not really much else I can add. Then you've explained it really well, so thank you for that.
It's my pleasure. I want to get some more from our guests before we send you on your way. But I do want to say, if you're concerned about this, I would implore you to consider that main question: how do we know what the right amount is? Because you can obviously, if you take that. Remember, I was telling you, like, we're trading water bottles for gold. Well, if we go all the way, like, what if the whole world was trees, and we could make a really simple, I don't know, a windmill, but we just have to cut one tree down. Obviously, well, unless you actually want all the human beings to be dead, you're obviously going to cut the first tree down to get the first windmill. So there is a question there underlying. The question is, what is that right amount? And that, I really believe that pursuing that in earnest will take you to why the free market is going to be the best, because the free market is going to answer that question. How can we get the most food? But instead of going into explaining that, let's send it back around. Zulu, we'll start it with you and send it to our co-hosts.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I did very much like the hero of the Lorax. I believe his name was the Onceler, where he wants to take these godforsaken trees down.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. Can you just restate the last thing you said, Galazar? I didn't hear you.
Oh my God, I don't remember.
I believe it was about how you need to concern yourself with how do you get the right amount of something, because you're going to be wanting to cut down that first tree for that first mill so you can make flour and feed people and stuff. And there's going to be some proper amount of trees, and the only way to solve that is through the market. I believe that's the gist of what Galazar was saying.
That's exactly right. The question is just, what is the optimum amount of something to produce? That's the question. And all I was saying was that question only has, as far as we're concerned anyway, that question only has one answer, and it will take you. If you're pursuing that question honestly, it'll take you to, I think, the right place. That's all I was saying.
Okay, thank you.
And I will say on that point, I do have this video why socialism is literally impossible, which will kind of highlight why we think there's only one answer here, why the socialist system couldn't actually answer that question in any way possible. It could not find the most value productive use of resources. But anyway, so yeah, no, on the Lorax question, the reason why that would differ from reality is that, well, if people are answering Galazar's question, first of all, there's not going to be a monopolist on air, so anybody could go out there and produce air. They're not going to cut down all the trees. Somebody will go, hey, actually, these Thanid trees, they're very valuable. I'm going to have a plantation of these things, and then I can have a renewable resource, and I'll be the Thanid guy. It wouldn't be everybody just, I mean, it cuts them down. I believe in that movie, there's even like a patent on Thanids or something. I don't know. It's been a while since I watched it. I think I watched it like in school or some shit. But yeah, that's why we think that type of scenario wouldn't actually occur. And yeah, no. So if the guests want to weigh in on it at all, then feel free.
I mean,
I think I'm good.
Oh yeah, I could just to wrap it up. All I really have to say is, I think when we say like we want to completely destroy the environment, there's almost this assumption of like high time preference, like this assumption that when we say that we mean oh, I'm just going to literally use every resource right now and not plan for the future whatsoever, and just consume, and then all of humanity is going to die. And it's like, I think that's a very large misrepresentation of the free market, because of what you guys have been saying. If this was a problem, if this resource is running out, that's a big problem. Where's the best place to solve it? The free market. What's the correct amount to use? The free market is going to provide the answers to these. So I don't think this like high time preference, just consuming all of the resource, then not thinking about tomorrow, is a appropriate framing, which is what you get from the Lorax. Sorry.
This might be, I don't know, maybe this is the perfect analogy. I actually worked on an extremely profitable tree farm a couple years ago. And this tree farm didn't actually take up that much space, but was so effective at producing trees that we were providing. So I live in Canada. We were providing trees for the whole planet. We were sending trees to Vietnam. Okay. Like we were sending trees like to British Columbia, to Nova Scotia, to California, everywhere. And it's so interesting to me because there's such a huge, like, we obviously still have a freaking lot of trees, and there's already this huge market that shows, even in our current state of affairs, like people want trees, and that want for trees has resulted in like a very big incentive for people to be very, very good at producing very healthy, beautiful trees and sending them all over the world. And I think it's just a beautiful thing to behold. I would like to give the last word before we move on to our caller.
Thank you for that. That was really informative. I'm glad I got that through. Based if true, I love your videos a lot, man. Even if they're a bit sloppy, and I'm hoping.
Thank you.
I'm hoping to see more from the Floptic channel, because I really love basic logic. I'm about to watch his new video now, actually. So, just God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
Have a good one. And on the topic of shoutouts, we actually had a super chat with a shout out in it. So I'm going to pull that up right quick before we get our next caller. This super chat reads, we're doing great stuff. Keep it up. Wanted to point Zulu particularly, but we're all getting the message. So here's the big shout out to some potential content, which is Natty Bud Light on YouTube. Is anyone here familiar with that user?
Yes. So actually, let me show you a little something. Seeing ask ancap screen share. There we go. Yeah, so I've actually got this little folder with things I'm planning to react to on stream, and I've got a little subfolder specifically for Natty Bud Light. Also, I'm not sure why I still have the chat in this scene. Obviously, that's not going to